let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to our last breakout session of the day. One I'm very excited for because we have a return speaker, Yin Lu, who is a partner at MCJ Collective. We are very excited to have her here. If you're here on earlier, we were just comparing West Coast, East Coast weather, everyone's favorite topic. But that does, that is climate change. So it is important that we discuss these things. So I'm going to set the stage and then let Yin take it over from here. But if, in case this is your first one of the sessions of the 10 we've had today, we have the chat box. You are all seeing that. People are posting in it. Let us know where you're from, what you're working on, anything you are up to. Would love to hear. We have people globally here, and it's really exciting to see that. And then next to that, people, so you can see who's in the chat. There's over 100 of us right now. One over, you'll see the Q&A. Oh, yeah, go Vancouver. We'll have the Q&A far to the right. Those are where you're going to drop your questions. That way we can see them quite easily. And then upvote the questions from other people that you like, because that is how we'll be sorting them by popularity. That way it's just easier to sort. All right. And great. So with that, I will hop off the screen, but I will still be here. And I will leave it to you.
Thanks, Stefan. And my gosh, such an immense amount of work that you and team have put in. Thank you everyone for being here. Hello. Gosh, I wish we were all in person so I can see your faces, but I'll just, talk to myself on the screen. My name is Yin Lu. I am one of the 5 partners here at MCJ Collective, which I hope to tell you more about today. We have half an hour, and so I'm actually just gonna zip through whatever slides I have, because I'm sure we are all feeling a little bit of slide fatigue at this point. And quickly tell you what MCJ is all about, and then we will save the bulk of the time, hopefully, for Q&A. That sounds good. Love seeing where people are coming in from. I'm just going to drop my email in here because I know that I will get asked this a bunch. Keep my email. If you have questions that we don't get a chance to answer later today, just email me. I am pretty accessible. And then I'll also drop in my Calendly link in case you wanted to book some time. As you will probably learn, MCJ, me, or an open book, really value kind of transparency and learning in everything that we do. And so I'm an open book. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. All right. So MCJ Collective, we are a organization that has existed since late 2019. We do 3 things, which I'll tell you about. Before I do, what you need to know about MCJ is kind of our vision is we exist to break down knowledge silos to accelerate climate tech solutions. And how we do that, I'm actually just going to skip a bunch of slides, but highlighting here, we do that through kind of a 3-prong approach. And for alliteration's sake, we do that through content, community, and capital. And I'll skip over some of these slides. So I'll just rest on this slide and talk for a bit here. I think it's really cool to tell you about the origin story of MCJ. So my partner, Jason Jacobs, who is this guy in the left, in the left side here. Jason was a tech entrepreneur based in Boston. He worked on and exited a company called My Runkeeper. And after his exit, he was kind of in a position to think about, what do I want to do for this next chapter of my career? Jason, like many of us on the team, has 2 young kids, and he cared about climate, but didn't really know anything about climate, and then wanted to go on a learning journey, hence the name My Climate Journey, or MCJ. And so Jason embarked on his climate journey and just started having conversations with people. And those conversations really quickly turned into a podcast, which many of you may have heard of, called the My Climate Journey podcast. And, in the span of 3.5, 4 years, we've quickly kind of become this center of gravity for climate learning. We have a podcast now that has kind of 4 separate series, which I'll talk to you more about. And it's garnered over, I think it's now 1.7 million downloads, 400 episodes, and just talking to some really smart people from every nook and cranny of the climate space, from the head of the Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy, Jigar Shah, to a solar panel installer who lives in Illinois. So we kind of really touch upon and try to amplify voices from all different parts of the climate economy so that we can break down knowledge silos and have people learn together in a really transparent way, because we come from a place of curiosity and we're not the experts on all topics, but we sure know lots of experts who can give us their perspective, and having those perspectives meld together to help us all learn. So from the podcast, people who are listening really wanted a place to collaborate. And so, and this actually coincided with the beginning of the pandemic, those dark times in early 2020, where people were like, oh, we're listening to the podcast and we really want a place to, just talk to each other about what we think, trade notes, exchange ideas, and see maybe we can start building something to solve these problems that we're learning about. And so we started a community on Slack, from the early days of like 20 people discussing episodes. And now we've mushroomed to over 3,600, maybe it's like 3,700 now, people from over 25 countries. And we have people who are just transitioning in. We have a bunch of entrepreneurs, we have investors, we have thought leaders, all in this beautiful, chaotic Slack that has hundreds of channels, where there's always a pulse on what's happening across different pockets of the climate space. And as you know, we were talking to a lot of interesting folks on the podcast and learning in various ways. We, met a bunch of really interesting entrepreneurs who are working on the early stages of an idea. And so we initially got invited to a bunch of angel rounds. And so we thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we started a venture fund, that way we can, really help founders accelerate what they're working on by leveraging kind of this community that we've been building and leverage this content platform that we've been building. And so to date, we've invested in 80 plus portfolio companies all across the climate space. We, have built a really strong track record of making interesting investments and having some wonderful co-investors in this space. We don't lead, in case you are an entrepreneur and you are wondering how MCJ's capital works. I can actually talk about it in a few slides, but we're usually the second, third largest check that comes into an early stage round. Pre-seed to Series A is kind of our sweet spot. Okay. Let's keep going here. So deep dive into the content pillar that we have. We have a newsletter that gets distributed out to 26,000 people in the kind of like larger space. So people that listen to the podcast and people that are that want to subscribe but aren't necessarily in the Slack. And so 26,000 people, that's kind of the distribution. And the podcast, you can just see some really amazing, fun, collaborative faces that we've had the pleasure of hosting on the podcast. And sometimes we invite our guests onto the MCJ Slack, where we do 24-hour AMAs, and those are always really fun and interesting. All right, and then on the community side, gosh, I think my slides are being cut off. And sorry, this is not in like full screen. I fear that if I go into full screen, that I won't be able to get back. So bear with me. So the MCJ community, 3,600 active members, and you kind of see the breakdown, the different personas of people that make up the community. And we've historically, because we were born during the time of the pandemic, a lot of virtual events. But now that the world has re-entered into the before times, more or less, we do a bunch of virtual programming and we do a bunch of in-person programming. And so from workshops like career transition meetups to welcome calls to in-person meetups like a Boston happy hour, New York happy hour, there. We have really interesting, cool niche workshops. We had a artist in residence named Nicole Kellner, which many of you might know of, and she used to run art workshops for us, and those were really fun. And a plug for anyone who is interested and is female identifying, we host monthly Women in Climate meetups, and the next one is happening tomorrow, where we do an industry deep dive with somebody, usually a founder from the community, and just, it's a big long Q&A session. And then we also do like a career transition deep dive within that hour meeting. So you can choose your own adventure. And I am the proud host of that. And so I'm just putting a plug in for the Women in Meetup, Women in Climate Meetup tomorrow. And so if you're interested, here, I'll drop the link to all the MCJ events into the chat so you can take a look. All right, let's see here. Talk faster, Ian, talk faster. In terms of, so we just talked about the content and the community for our fund. Actually, maybe go to this slide. What people ask, what does MCJ invest in? And it's a framework that has on the x-axis moving bits to moving atoms, so pure software. So you can imagine like carbon accounting. And then on the other end, it's pure hardware, deep tech, physical moving atoms things. In the middle, it's software enabling hardware to move better, faster, more optimally. On the y-axis, you have removal or sequestration of greenhouse gases, and so engineer nature-based solutions. You have mitigation. How do we get off our dependency on fossil fuels? And then there's a third category of adaptation, or sometimes it's called resiliency building. So how do you build resiliency against increased flood risk, wildfire risk, et cetera. And lastly, enablement. And so this is an interesting category where people are working on technologies that will enable more capital and more IQ points to flow into the rest of this framework. And so we will look at any companies that is working in this within this framework. And again, early stage, pre-seed to Series A is our sweet spot. And in case you're curious on who is part of the MCJ portfolio family, you can also get this on mcjcollective.com. But here's a snapshot of kind of the different segments that we have invested in, and that really ladders well to this framework. And so I'll put this here in case anybody needs to take a screenshot or something. All right, I'm almost done, you guys. And just to give you a sense of where MCJ's reach is, vast majority of our portfolio companies are in North America, and a small percentage in Europe, and growing our presence in markets like India and Kenya. And Nigeria more recently, and you can kind of see our portfolio companies in the green dots overlaid with where the community members are. And then lastly, who are the people on the MCJ team? And so we talked about Jason, who's a founding partner and went on his journey and brought all of us along. There's myself. My background is I spent the past 12 years in tech, big and small, Google, Microsoft, and was a long time operator generalist in the edtech space. And so worked at Coursera, Khan Academy, and most recently before joining MCJ, I worked for Sheryl Sandberg at her family office. And then there's Ty, who is a longtime software entrepreneur and operator, and has spent a bunch of time in the automotive industry. There's my partner, Cody, who spent the first part of his career in the .com phase of tech development, and then most recently, before joining MCJ, was at Techstars, and actually started Techstars sustainability and climate work before joining MCJ. And then David Aronoff, our fifth partner, who spent the past 20 years in the VC space at Greylock and Flybridge. And then we have Antonia, who's our fractional COO, and Jen, who leads all of our content, Leonie, who leads all of our community work, and Zoe, who does a lot of our production work. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing slides and just put this here in case you want to follow us, et cetera. And I'll put, again, my email address in the chat so you can feel free to reach out. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and let's do some Q&A. Goodness, I wish I could hear your voices. We got 152 people here. All right. Let's see. For those of you who want to put more questions in, feel free to. And then let me look at the latest. Okay, we got 2. So Bert, what is your opinion on the status of the climate investing environment? Oh, good question. I feel like the climate space, now that we've, entered, or I don't know at what level you want me to answer that, but at a very macro level, I think, compared to where we were in the early 2010s, this is certainly, climate tech, clean tech 2.0, where we're seeing an unprecedented amount of capital flowing into the space, unlike any other time since the 1.0. I think that there is a confluence for the first time ever of responsive government, public awareness, capitalism, and innovation happening, and emphasis on responsive government, because we have not seen anything like the infrastructure IRA bill, at least in the U.S. market, and I would say Europe was a few years ahead, to really ensure that this space is not a flash in the pan, and certainly we all feel it in our day-to-day lives, the impacts of a rapidly changing climate. And so I am very bullish on this space. At a more micro level, I think the market has been squirrelish for the past few, say like three quarters, but I feel like we're seeing more deal flow now than we have for the past 2 quarters, and seeing more capital being deployed, and so that hopefully answers where you were coming from. Bert, let's see. Okay, Stefan told me to go by popular. Okay. Amy, good question. What are the milestones and metrics you look for in a pre-seed or seed investment? That is a good question. I think for us, two basic things. We want to know that whatever problems you're working on, there's a tangible climate impact, and you can argue, if you look at that framework of moving bits, moving atoms, sequestration, mitigation, resiliency building, enablement, that it's going to differ from company to company, and so we want to make sure that whatever problem you're solving, that you have really a clear metric that you're measuring yourself against that has climate impact. So that's first, that's kind of like baseline. And then really understanding the product market fit, or the founder market fit, and looking at the problem space and the founding team to see, is this a team that is well positioned to solve this problem, and are they surrounding themselves with folks that have the right expertise to really tackle whatever problem that you're solving. And let's see, I think those are kind of the major foundational ones. Happy to go deeper if you have more specific questions, and feel free to add questions. Again, I wish I could have a dialogue to see if I've appropriately answered that question, but for the sake of time, we have 10 more minutes. I will move on. Let's see here. Is the current QTM bear market affecting the climate tech investments in a good way or bad way? I think that climate as a whole is a burgeoning space, and I say that knowing that it's not a new space. People have been working for decades on getting technologies to be at a point where cost curves are cheap enough for things to scale. So I think that that said, there's a lot of technologies that are now just getting to commercialization scale, or having at least a path and being on at a TRL level that is that is ready for a business to be built around it. And so what that provides is in kind of earlier phase, but more moat against some of the other potential investments out there that might be at a later stage that are more impacted by this bear market. And so I feel like it's being that climate tech is in a good meta position relative to the rest of the investable market, in that it is relatively early, and therefore gets shielded from a lot of the crazy valuations that we're seeing at later stages. Okay, Igor, if you have more questions, email me, or add more questions in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna keep on going down this list. Cameron, what advice do you have for someone just starting out their career in the climate space? I have so much to say here. I would say understanding the problem space, I think is a good 101. Just like when we say, climate space, what do we mean? Like, what are the problems worthy of solving, and where are the sources of emissions? Basically what the problem landscape looks like, and then learning about the solution space, and then figuring out, what pixel you want to focus on that really leverage both your skill set and brings you energy. And so I would certainly go about it in that way, and then finding people along the way who are in similar spots, or maybe slightly ahead or slightly behind on their journey. I'm a big believer in community, and having gone through the pandemic and working from home for the past 2-3 years, it could feel lonely. And so when I decided to embark on my climate journey, I found so much solace in knowing other people that were going along the same path, and sharing and trading stories, trading notes and contacts with people. And I think that the climate space is still small enough where it's easy to build a close knit connection of 10ish people that you might meet at at an event, or on a Slack, or in a cohort of based fellowship. And so I definitely would encourage you, or anyone who's interested in really leaning into climate, to find some people, find your people. Okay, Valerie, Jason Religion started as an AngelList rolling fund. What is the form of the venture fund now? Oh, good question, Valerie. Thank you for asking that. Because I glossed that over in the slides, and so you are correct. So when we first started off MCJ's venture fund, like an MVP, and you were like, we've our fund one, if you will, we did this off of the angel list rolling fund structure. And now that we've matured a bit, we are playing the same sport, but with, I say, better equipment. And we are actually currently fundraising for fund two, which is a traditional fund. And if anyone's interested in learning about that, happy to share more. And Valerie, if you want to double click into that, happy to be helpful there. Just send me an email. Yes, Michael, the slides are available, although it's in PDF format, and I can upload them and have them available for you all. Or if you want to email me, I can just send you the PDF. Okay. Let's see, Simon, what is the horizon for your fund, and what would be the ideal fund horizon when investing in climate tech? So I think what you mean by horizon is kind of like the amount of time. And that'll be a 10-year horizon, because a lot of these technologies that are 2 years ago were in ideation and lab level feasibility are now getting to a point where they are ready to go into pilot phase with a partner, and then the next phase would be to go into commercial phase and build infrastructure to be able to scale. And so that time horizon we suspect will take that 7 to 10 years arc. Let's see here, Victor. Oh, great, Victor, you had this question that was there earlier. What Ukrainian projects focusing on recycling and cattle and horse manure to energy, is that possibly part of the MCJ? Okay, Ukrainian project focusing on recycling cattle and horse manure to energy. Amazing. Possibly part of the MCJ community remotely. Absolutely. I think we have. Can I share? Let me see if I can share my screen. Maybe I could just share what the Slack community looks like, so you'll have a sense. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Window. Okay. You see that this is MCJ Slack. We're planning on an event, but there's a bunch of different geographies where people will, post about what's happening here and there. And so we don't yet have a Ukraine Slack group. And so, Victor, if you are curious to learn more, it'd be really great to have a presence. And then you can also see just the different types of channels that we have. We have Celebrate Wins, and we have Learning Sprints. We have Climate Art. We do a book club, et cetera, et cetera. So I am going to stop sharing now, but you get a sense of what the community looks like, and it's always hustling and bustling. Okay. And then Bert, I answered your question earlier. Oh, Pedro, hi. What is your presence in LATAM? Do you invest in the region? What spaces in ag are you currently investing in? Great question. Our depends on how you define presence in LATAM. From a content perspective, we have interviewed quite a few folks whose work is focused on Latin America. We have I believe 3 or 4 portfolio founders who have done their education are from various countries in Latin America. Brazil and Argentina, namely. But in terms of investing in companies that are based in Latin America, we currently do not have any companies that are started and HQ'd in LATAM, although that is a space that is fast growing, my gosh, and I'm definitely seeing more interesting companies formulate in the region. And so if you are, if you have thoughts on who we should be looking at, please send them my way. And let's see here. Okay. DV didn't really understand what the community portion of your activities are, just given the lighting tour. Explaining a bit more. Yeah, so community is a Slack channel that you just saw, and on top of which we have a lot of programming based on various goals that people have in joining the community, that helps you learn, helps you connect, helps you refine your pitch, helps you connect with other people with like affinity, identity in the community. So really, I'm going to quote our head of community. She Leonie, is her name. She says this phrase, and I really like it. We are in the business of engineering serendipity, and so really just helping you find people in your that are part of your journey, and to make the climate space feel smaller, so that you can share knowledge and really break down knowledge silos that exist when you don't understand what another part of the ecosystem is doing. So how that understanding will make solutions happen faster. Okay. Oh my gosh, I have 1 more minute, and I really want to end on time. So Michael, another question: do you invest in Southeast Asia climate tech? We don't yet have a portfolio company that is based in Southeast Asia, although we have portfolio companies who are growing their footprint in the region. So I mean, welcome. If you have insights into the region, because I want to learn more. We want to learn more in the space. And then lastly, what role can startups play in solving workforce shortages issues with climate tech? Oh my gosh, that is longer than a 1 minute answer. So Steve, I'm happy to answer that over email, but I have lots of thoughts on this, namely that, if we don't move IQ points, if we don't do more job creation, then the economy will not grow. And so a big part of what we do is think about workforce development and ways that we can that we can accelerate that through our content platform and through investing in companies that are really focused on the space. Okay, I see 7 back. Which
that was a great answer. If you want to properly, I mean, you are the last session, so if there is a thing you want to say before we end, I'm not going to cut you short. We're not.
Oh, well, thank you. I really like ending things on time. We're already a minute over. But I will just say thank you all for being here, and thank you for leaning into climate. I mean, it is kind of just the existential opportunity of our generation and for the generations to come. That's why I'm in this space. I have 2 young kids, and I want to make sure that we're leaving the world in a better shape than for them. And so if you believe any part of that, I'm just so glad that you're here. And please reach out. I am very accessible: LinkedIn, email, Calendly. I want to help how I can. And I hope that you all, as you're leaning into your climate journeys, end up giving back to you and helping others who are earlier join the movement. So thank you all. Thank you for the great questions, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was fantastic. You got really good questions, like really good questions. So shout out to you.
Good group.
It's a good group. As a community person, I love my community organizer, the people that bring the right people together, and round pegs, round holes sort of thing. So I'm really grateful for the MCJ group for doing collective. I like to think of you guys as a group doing great things, and separate orgs within the org doing amazing stuff. Thank you for joining us for our last breakout session of day 1. Everyone, we have day 2, which will be tomorrow, of course. Thank you, everyone who's just been along with us for today's ride, and 1 or 2 tech hiccups, but that's totally fine. That's to be expected, as we're trying to figure out this new internet thing, so that's totally okay. But anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. We still have main stages going on. We have the XTC challenge as well. We're going to have our judges. We're going to do all these things. So, I'll see you guys again. But Yin, thank you. Let us know next time you're in New York. Please drop by our office. I'll see you next PNW Climate Week as well.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.